Welcome to Getting Sketchy Live, brought to you by thevirtualinstructor.com. And now, let's get sketchy.
Hello there, everyone. Matt here with thevirtualinstructor.com, and welcome to Getting Sketchy Live, where myself or my good friend and fellow artist and art teacher tries to create a drawing inside of 45 minutes. We're going to have a timer and everything. So while we sweat under the lights, while Ashley sweats under the lights, you get to kick back and watch all of this on YouTube. So I'd like to welcome all of you to Getting Sketchy Live. Tonight, Ashley is going to be doing the drawing here in the next 45 minutes. Ashley, how are you doing over there?
I was doing fine, and now I've realized my heart rate is increasing. Did you guys hear what Matt said? Trying to do a drawing in 45 minutes? I think he saw our reference. And I also saw your comment, Judith. They do look complicated, but we're going to try to find a way to simplify these. So if you want to follow along, that's great, or just watch. We're going to draw kind of small because there is a lot of stuff, or appears to be a lot of stuff going on in this drawing. But it is 6:30 on the East Coast in the United States, so let's get sketchy.
Absolutely. And one of the reasons why this is called Getting Sketchy is, first of all, we're pretty sketchy individuals. But secondly, this is all about loosening it up and drawing quickly. So we're not creating finished drawings here on Getting Sketchy. That's reserved for our live lessons, which follow after this broadcast, which I'll talk about a little bit more in just a minute. But if you are watching this live, there is a chat box on YouTube. You can, of course, post questions or comments. They don't have to be about what we're talking about tonight. They can be anything art related, and I'll be manning the chat box tonight. So we'll do our best to answer those questions for you. If you put it in all capital letters, that'll help me see it amongst all of the other comments. Sometimes the chat box, especially here on YouTube, gets going pretty fast. And if you put your comment or question in capital letters, that helps me see it, of course. Ashley's going to get ready to go in just a minute, but I do want to just remind everybody that we do have a membership program over at thevirtualinstructor.com, which includes a variety of drawing and painting courses, which include logically sequenced videos and illustrated ebooks. We also do weekly critiques, weekly critiques, which are part of the Members Minute. But we do weekly live lessons too. So after we broadcast here on YouTube, I'm going to be picking up where I left off with a lizard man drawing with pen and ink. And of course, all of our live lessons, they're broadcast live, but they're also recorded. So you can go back to our vault and watch any of the recorded lesson series whenever you feel like it, even though they were broadcast live when they first aired. There's also a year-long curriculum for visual arts teachers if you are a teacher and want to use some of the material in your classroom. So I think that's all we need to say. Oh, one more thing. If you do want to check out our membership program, there is a link in the description below this video. There also is a link to check out 3 free course videos and ebooks, which are part of our membership program, in the description below. And if you're new to the channel or you haven't done so yet, why not subscribe to the channel? It's absolutely free to do so. And we cover a broad variety drawing and painting, media, and subject matter here. And tonight we're going to be covering the subject matter of gears. Okay, so the drawing the image looks complex, but I'm pretty sure Ashley's going to show us how he can break it down, or how you can break it down and make it a little bit more simpler. I hope
so. We're going to take a look at a pretty low resolution photograph in just a minute, just so we can kind of point to it and make some marks on it, and try to see a way to simplify this subject.
All right, I think we're ready to go ahead and switch over to the main camera. So we'll give Ashley a second to do that, and then we'll get into this one.
All righty, so you can see I'm going to be using graphite tonight. I've got a 4B, an HB, and a 3H pencil, and an eraser. And you can see we're pulling out all the stops tonight. I've got an eraser cap. So if that eraser cap blows out, I'm prepared. I've got a little bit more art eraser over here, but sometimes the eraser cap helps me move faster because I've got the eraser tool right there in my hand. So the paper is 8 by 5, so it's not that crazy big. It's really like a half a sheet almost in a drawing pad. And that'll help us to go a little bit quicker. You can see how big the pencils are compared to the piece of paper. The photograph that we're working from, here's a low resolution version. I like the more high contrast image that we're going to be using, but photograph has tons of texture in it, okay? All this business in here, these chipped up edges, that's the kind of stuff we're going to be ignoring tonight, okay? So tonight's about big picture, trying to see the overall sort of geometric arrangement in here. And so there's a concept in art called implied lines, and we're going to need that. So there are some solid edges like this one here in the background. And in the large gear, we'll call this one the big gear tonight. And I bet you can guess what we're going to call this one. That's right, it's the little gear. But there's a smooth edge to the bottom of this big gear. But up here in these cogs, this is what's so intimidating. But there's really an implied line that connects all of these edges. And so we're going to start out by drawing a smooth wheel and then just try to kind of carve some of these triangular and I guess these are like trapezoid type shapes. We'll kind of carve that out. Not dissimilar from how I tried to draw hands, right? And then sort of carve out the empty shapes between those in the Guitar Man drawing from just a couple of weeks ago. All right, so implied lines is going to be one of our themes for tonight. And we're going to ignore the texture and also look for the perspective. So let's look for the perspective. All of these cogs appear to go in the same direction, but if we're careful with our angles, we'll see I'm going to hold the pencil at the same angle and move across the picture. You can see the cogs on the little wheel don't match up. They're not parallel. So really, there's a vanishing point in here. It's above, sort of like above maybe the right corner of the image. And so we want to make sure that we're leaning these cogs towards where we believe the vanishing point is. Now, if you're not really familiar with working with vanishing points, that's okay. We don't really need one. It's not in the picture anyway. The point is these cogs are going to change their orientation a little bit towards a point in space, similar to how like an old-fashioned fan kind of opens around a hinge. All right? Anyway, I think that's enough talking. It's time to draw.
All right, I'll bring up the photo reference up in the corner. The high contrast version.
That's right.
And we're going to be ready to start the timer whenever you say you're ready.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get it started.
All right, 45 minutes on the clock here.
The big wheel, to me, it looks like it's slightly above the middle of the page. If we look at the big wheel and how much negative or empty space is above it, I think my big wheel is going to come up to about right here. So that's where I'll start my first mark. And the second wheel, just a kind of a guesstimation, it's angled at about like this above the big wheel. So maybe in this area.
And, you know, it's like Tina said, big wheel, keep on turning.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that.
Yep.
I love Tina Turner.
Thank Ike, too.
I actually also like Ike Turner, but it's not popular to say. But he could write some great music.
All right, folks from all over the place again. Oakland, Vancouver, Canada, Montana, Ohio, Vancouver Island, Tampa Bay, Ontario, Queensland, Australia, Germany. Hello, everybody. Indiana. Hope everybody's doing great tonight. I got a couple of questions already.
All right, super.
Let's see. Someone is asking, Pastor James is asking, what free image page do you suggest? This image comes from Pixabay, and it has just been very slightly altered. All I did was take the color out of it. And let's see here. How do you store graphite powder that comes in a bag without a Ziploc? The graphite powder I use actually comes in a can. And that's what I would suggest you do. Put it in a can, an empty container, maybe an empty vitamin container, or some type of container that maybe medicine was in. That might be a good place to store.
I ordered some little silicone containers. They're like about an ounce and a half that they hold, and I got them from. It wasn't Dick Blick. It might have been Saks, and they're real squishy and durable, and the lids fit really tight. So I think those are great. They're like the old film containers we used to use for 35 millimeter camera.
Oh, yeah. That'd be great to store tempera paint in, too. Huh?
That's what I've been using it for, actually. In fact, that's what I had the tempera paint in when I drew the insect bug a few weeks ago.
Okay, Daly says, in one of the lessons using the blending stump, it got so dirty, I could have used it for drawing. Yes, absolutely, you can. The blending stump is a mark-making tool. So when you get a lot of graphite material on it, you can use it to spread it into other areas. But of course, it sounds like this person really didn't want that to happen. Are we supposed to rub them on the kneaded eraser to clean them? Never used them before. Some people like to clean them by using a sandpaper pad and basically sanding down the blending stump.
I do that.
Ashley does that. I am
Usually because I don't have extra blending stumps.
I buy lots of blending stumps in bulk, and when they just get too dirty for me to use, I actually just throw them away. But I really tend to use the blending tortillas a little bit more than the blending stumps. Which,
Now, those are the hollow ones, right?
yeah, blending tortillas are basically just rolled up pieces of paper. The blending stumps are actually compressed, pulverized, or I guess it's not pulverized, it's not the right word, but pulpified. Pulpified paper compressed together. So they're a little bit different. You've probably noticed that before.
Like it's like plywood, I guess, but for paper.
Yeah, it's like kind of like that. It's like composite wood, I guess, for paper. But some people are going to like the blending stumps a little bit more, and some people are going to like the blending tortillas a little bit more. It's the blending tortillas. I feel like there's a little bit more precision there. But since they're rolled up paper, you only have one end to work with. And they do kind of fall apart a little bit quicker than the blending stumps, which kind of stay a little bit more rigid longer.
All right. It looks like that the bottom of my big wheel needs to actually come down a little bit farther. This line could become, or is close to becoming, the bottom of the actual cogs. So I'm just kind of feeling my way through here, looking at the empty spaces that's made between some of these parts and kind of comparing that to the parts themselves.
So just to kind of reiterate, you've drawn the top line of the big wheel. That represents the edge of the cogs.
That's correct. If you're looking at your screen, well, I can't point on top of the picture. This line represents the implied line between these cogs, if that helps a little bit.
Okay.
And then we'll just start taking these shapes out.
The bottom line would represent the bottom of the...
I'm trying to find the bottom of the actual wheel right now.
Okay, all right.
Okay, and then I've got an applied line here and another one here. There you go. You can see them all.
Okay, Nexus Gamer says, "Can you please slow down?" And the answer to that is no. We have a timer.
Oh my
We have
gosh,
45 minutes here.
I would love to slow down, but I'm probably going too slow as it is.
If you like the slower,
Now remember, this is a video.
yes.
So if you fall behind, you can rewatch it as soon as it's over.
Yeah, this is recorded. It'll be available on YouTube almost immediately after we're finished here. But if you do like the slower drawing demonstrations or painting demonstrations, then you probably want to think about one of our courses or the live lessons, which is a much slower process. We're creating sketches here, obviously in the time frame. 45 minutes really isn't enough time to create a finished drawing.
If we were doing the same drawing in a live lesson, we would spend 5 or 6 or 7 weeks on it and really nail down all of the nuance in the sort of the old aged beaten metal. All right, I feel pretty good about this. This shape is pretty important. This is how the cogs sort of disappear into the other gear. So I'm feeling pretty good about the shape I've ended up with. I'm still not certain that this is deep enough. I'm going to bring this down just a tad more.
So you're making adjustments to your initial contour line drawing.
Correct. And just trying to move stuff around. Not really change. I liked the shape I had. I just felt like that the proportion, the height of this side compared to the depth of the gear was just a little off. So I just brought that whole segment down a little bit. Now we'll move on to the little wheel.
Now, Norma asks, talk about graphite shine. Graphite shine is, graphite is inherently a shiny medium. So it's going to be shiny really no matter what. But one thing that you can do to kind of help alleviate a little bit of graphite shine is just to be careful that you don't flatten the tooth of your paper. So the tooth is the texture of the paper. And if we were to look at it with a really high-powered visibility enhancer, we'll call it, you would see that it has, all papers for the most part have somewhat of a grainy or bumpy surface. So obviously some have more than others. And the paper Ashley's working with, this is just regular sulfite drawing paper, right? White sulfite.
That's right. White sulfite, 80-pound drawing paper. And it's a little bit off-white, actually. You really can't tell on the screen, but it's darker than white.
So this has a little bit of a kind of a medium to weak tooth. But there's enough tooth there that if you were to use a softer graphite pencil like a 4B or 5B pencil, you would see the graininess of the paper. And if you push
And
too
you may
hard,
later, when I start shading with this 4B, I mean, I may actually just shade over the whole thing and then erase out a lot of the lights. We'll probably see this texture a bit.
if you press too hard with the pencil, you'll basically mash down the surface of the paper. So you'll basically flatten out the tooth, and that will actually enhance the shine. That will make it shinier. So really the way to make your graphite drawing as least shiny as possible is to just be patient with your graphite applications. Maybe start with some lighter pencils, some harder pencils, and use a light touch, and don't put too much pressure on the pencil to flatten the tooth, and then gradually work up to softer pencils so you can make the values a little bit darker that they need to be without putting too much pressure on it. Most drawings that I see that have a lot of graphite shine are, that shininess is created by a student or someone grabbing a 6B pencil or a 4B pencil right from the start and then putting all kinds of heavy pressure on it because they see an area that looks black and they think, well, I just need to push as hard as I can on the pencil.
From the very beginning.
Right. And that just flattens the tooth of the paper, and that just makes the graphite shine, reflect the light from all angles. But if you preserve a little bit of that tooth, it kind of helps keep that shine down. Remember, a smoother surface is going to be shinier than a rougher surface.
All right, well, we've got a lot of big lines in. They're landing really close to where they are in the photo reference, and if it's close enough that it looks acceptable, I'm leaving it that way. Given the interest of time, it's very difficult to tell because in the darkness, it's very dark in this top corner, but there is a little bit of a slanted contour there. We're looking down at this machine, and so it's in a little bit of three-point perspective as well as the vanishing point I referenced before. It's going to sort of control the direction of our cogs. Speaking of which, it's almost cog time.
Any of you guys feel like you're just cogs in a machine?
Every day. Every day.
But without
if not cogs in the machine,
the big
bricks
wheel
in the wall,
would not
right?
keep on turning.
That's right.
The big wheel would stop turning.
As long as you like your machine, I guess.
Then Mary wouldn't be so proud.
I grew up listening to the CCR version of that song, and then the movie came out called "What's Love Got to Do with It?" It's the Ike and Tina Turner story,
right?
And
when you realized that.
Well, when that came out, I was 16 or 17, probably 16, and I started working at movie theaters.
Yeah.
Tearing tickets and making popcorn. This was one of my high school jobs, and one of my numerous high school and college jobs. But this one I loved the most. I got paid the least, and I got to see all the movies and let my friends in for free, and which made me very popular in the high school. And then in addition to that, I got to see movies like What's Love Got to Do with It about 20 times. And I love that movie. So I'm a big I can quote it. When I say 20 times, I am not exaggerating. I also saw House Party 3 20 times.
There's a House Party 3?
Yeah, you don't need to see that. No
I remember
one does.
House Party 2 being bad enough.
Pretty sure it was 3. It might have been 2, but I'm pretty sure it's 3. I saw that.
Kid and Play?
Yeah, that's right. Kid and Play. Those are two different people. And I saw that movie at least 20 times. And those were the most exciting shows.
All right. Joy says, I've seen you guys use mechanical pencils that appear to have thicker lead, 2B.
Oh, yes.
They look better than what I've been using. What type brand do you recommend? Well, that thicker lead, I think that's 2mm.
And
lead.
it's a lead. We call those lead holders, and they predate what we think of as a regular mechanical pencil today. So I know it's the same thing. It really is. But they've been called lead holders for a long, long time. And the lead they hold is thick, just like in a wooden pencil. Or more likely, like in a wooden pencil. All right, now these cogs, I'm not counting them. I'm just going for it. But I want to notice sort of their evolving relationship. So, like I mentioned before, their angles change. So I'm very slowly trying to change the angle of the cogs. In addition to that, the spacing between them is reduced as we work our way to the little wheel. Okay, so you got to keep that in mind. So this is a case where I know what I'm drawing. It's the same thing over and over, but I need to keep checking the reference. For each line, I need to look at the reference and kind of compare how it related to the last line. And again, I may not get all the cogs in, or I might have an extra one, but as long as I have that relationship between them, they'll be believable.
and Joy, just to go back, those mechanical pencils that we use here, the lead holders, are made by Staedtler. It looks like it's pronounced Stadler, but I think it's a German company. It's actually pronounced Staedtler.
It's like between an E and an A.
Yeah.
Staedtler.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's weird.
I'm not
Between
going to try that one.
That's my guess. That's my best guess.
I'll just keep calling it Staedtler.
That's my best guess.
But they make graphite in a variety of different grades. So you can get 2H, H, 2B, 4B. Those are really the most popular grades of graphite that you can get at the art store or order online. But it's a phenomenal pencil to work with, and I would recommend getting the specially designed sharpener to go along with it too. You can get a really sharp tip with those pencils. Veek asked, what kinds of pictures and media is smooth Bristol paper for? And right now, I'm doing a pen and ink drawing on smooth Bristol paper. Smooth Bristol paper is really, in my opinion, best suited for pen and ink drawing. But you can definitely use graphite on smooth Bristol paper too. I've used it before, but again, you just have, even though it feels smooth, there is a little bit of tooth there on the surface. But you just have to be careful, because the smoother the surface you work on, the greater chance of having that really shiny graphite glaring back at you. But as long as you're just careful with your applications, and you don't try to push the pencil further than it's capable of going, then it shouldn't be an issue.
All right, starting to carve out these cogs now. Hopefully, it's almost like an assembly line, the way we're building this. You know, one part goes in place, and then the next part goes in place. It's just like rivets in an assembly line a little bit.
Yeah, that's looking great there, the way you're carving it out like this.
I just wanted to try to show a way to try to simplify first. It's always the name of the game, is simplify.
Yeah,
and so I tried to see it as a wheel first, not as a gear.
In drawing and painting, we like to refer to this process as construction, basically, because you're basically constructing your complex subject out of basic shapes.
I'm glad you said construction, because the analogy I use is building a house. And so these bigger oh, great.
Yeah, I've got a whole post with an animation of a house being built.
Maybe I read that.
Yeah.
I don't know. But the big shapes are like your foundation on a house. It's big and plain with no details.
Yep.
And then the next thing is walls. They're a little smaller, right? And eventually we get to things. I know I kind of started with this. It's like a detail. But for the most part, details are like door handles. You know, they go in last, like these cogs. And so we're, of course, we're still in the foundation stage over here.
And you don't see what's in the walls.
That's right.
It's covered up.
And those are all these extra lines we draw. This line and this one helped me with my lips to try to get, the two halves balanced, and the side that's closer to feel a little bit bigger. I don't know.
See, I think a lot of people look at the reference and they totally freak out.
They see it all. It's so much. There's an old expression that I usually get wrong, and I think it is, though, that a person can't see the forest for the trees. These cogs are the little trees, right? But we need to see just the big shape of the forest first. So I love that expression. Can't see the forest for the trees.
I thought you were going to say make like a tree and bark.
Make like a tree and leave.
Yeah, but it...
Oh, yeah.
From Back to the Future.
Back to the Future. Back to the Future, that's right. Oh, that was a great movie. What was it, Biff?
Yeah,
Make
Biff.
Like a tree and get out of here. Isn't that what he said?
I thought he said bark.
Maybe he said bark. I thought he said make like a tree and get out of here, which is more Biff. More Biff. All right, now it's time to get over here. I got a half an hour. I'm feeling pretty good about
Melody says this is already looking terrific, and it really is.
Oh, thanks, Melody.
Those cogs look really sharp, really clearly defined.
Now, the trick is going to get them to jump over here and still look like they fit together. Something I haven't really thought much about. I might have to get real quiet for a minute, concentrate, because I'm there. All right, so let's see. From this spot, we're going to go uphill just a smidge. I'm going to have to bring my top line out a little bit.
Well, your Amishi is sending you love and more power.
Ooh, I could use that.
So
thank you.
Maybe you can feel that power.
I can.
Coming through the YouTube.
I'm going to have to close my eyes for a second. Okay, I know you couldn't see me, but I did close my eyes.
And you felt the power.
I did. I had to concentrate, and that does work, I believe. Okay, so this one's going to come out. So it looks like my lines just needed to move over and up about 1/8 of an inch to kind of fit into that cog. So I'm okay with that so far. That's actually good because the top half of the ellipse here is closer to me and should feel a little larger than the bottom or farther half of the ellipse. And so probably bringing this out will make that more accurate, even if I'm maybe squeezing it a little, getting a little tight up here with the negative space at the top.
Well, I reduced the reference a little bit so that we can see what you're doing up there in the upper
Okay, great.
corner there.
Let's see. I know this is my direction through here according to the perspective, and I'm about there. Might have to back these off a little bit or just keep them parallel for just a minute.
So your vanishing point is off of the picture plane.
That's right.
Way up there in the upper left-hand corner.
Yeah, I'm going to move this down and try to show you. If my vanishing point would be around about here, which is, I guess it would be, in this case, about 4 or 5 inches above the drawing. So it's outside of my picture plane. But it just, if I kind of know what I'm aiming at, it just helps to have an idea of about where it's supposed to be. I'm going to throw some lines in here that may go away just for direction. And I might have to alter this part just a little bit and shave it down some. So I may have to mess around with these edges by a degree or so.
So, you're keeping linear perspective in mind,
right,
but you're not totally dependent on it.
No. There is I'm not looking for a vanishing point like with a ruler. I just want to remember where it's at. I'm keeping it, just like Matt said, just keeping it in mind.
And I think a lot of people, when they learn 1 point or 2 point perspective, they feel like they've got to use it in everything that they draw.
And get real tight.
They get real tight, and they got to find that vanishing point, or both of those vanishing points, or 3 vanishing points, and every single image. And most of the time, that's not really necessary. If you're doing buildings or something like that.
When you're drawing things that you can't actually see, right? When you're designing and making things up. But I would agree. Then you need to know where they're at. You might need to use a ruler. But otherwise, it's just you want to be aware of them. I think linear perspective is like a good art teacher. And eventually you don't need it as much anymore because it teaches you kind of how things recess into space and change their orientation if they're horizontal planes moving away from you, that kind of stuff.
Hey, Kool-Aid says, what websites place do you guys get the photo references? This one is from pixabay.com.
That's right.
And William says, feels strange seeing a graphite drawing that isn't a skull or other organic subject matter.
Well, I love drawing machines and things like machines and man-made objects and such. I like interior spaces more than landscapes. So I guess it's just personal preference there.
Well, let's see. This is the 3rd season of Getting Sketchy, and we've done 2 skulls.
That's right.
In all the seasons.
You've done a skull in each season, right?
No, I did a skull this season.
Yeah.
And then I did one of the first season.
Okay. 2 total.
Yeah, long time.
Not one each season.
And we do a lot of organic subject matter.
We do.
Birds.
You said doo-doo. And I would point out that anytime you would say doo-doo, you can try it with one do, and it'll make the same. It'll make sense the same.
We do organic material.
It means the same thing. I know. Why do people say doo-doo when they're... I don't understand that. I've been trying to figure that out all my life. I don't mean to get distracted
down the
here.
wrong...
I know.
We're going down the wrong rabbit hole
It's a thing. It's a thing. It's a pet peeve. Not against you personally, Matt.
Good, that's okay. I do that frequently.
I think everybody does.
Maybe if there's a pause, I do do that.
That's better.
That is better.
That feels good to me.
Yeah.
I do that. That feels okay too.
Well, we say I don't do that.
That's true.
I do not do that.
It wouldn't bother me if those two syllables put together also don't have another meaning.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
That's the only thing. So. Okay, it's working out okay. It's fitting together in there. Of course, this is going to get real dark. I'm halfway done. Okay, I got most of the lines in here. We're going to have to start shading pretty soon. So
you got 20 minutes. You're killing it here. Granny says, do you have a lesson on 1 point and 2 point perspective? Yes, Granny. We have lots of lessons on 1 and 2 point perspective. Some of them are in courses, some of them are in live lesson series, and some of them are free. All you need to do is go to thevirtualinstructor.com and click on the lessons tab in the main menu, then choose drawing, then choose drawing concepts, and you'll find lessons on perspective as well as other things like proportion and composition, etc., etc.
All right. I thought about trying to do something from imagination as a linear perspective drawing, with Gettin Sketchy, but I don't think it would work that well. You can't really follow along, at speed with somebody's imagination. But it would be fun. Maybe over at the virtual instructor.
What's that again? I'm sorry.
To do a linear perspective drawing.
Yeah, we've got a lot of those lessons.
As a live lesson?
Yeah, I've got a couple of live lesson series on perspective.
Okay, well, there you go.
They're older. I mean, they're pretty old, but let's see. Brent Does Art says, do I see teeth marks on Ashley's pencil? LOL, bad.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, my gosh, that's killing me. How do you put pencils in your mouth?
I don't do that anymore, Brent. I don't know how old this pencil is. It could be as old as me. But I don't do that anymore, and I used to. I used to hold pencils in my mouth when I would erase. Then I started working in a public school, and I got sick.
Yeah.
And I quit touching my face entirely.
I remember eating lunch with you, and you had paint all over your hands, and you were just eating. I said, did you not wash your hands? And you said, nope, and just ate the food. And he literally was sick.
Oh my God.
A day or two later.
Lesson learned, I learned lessons the hard way, and that's still learning. I would point out that the hard way is a great way to learn for some people.
The hard way is a
that's
good
how my son
reinforcement. Good reinforcement.
I think we talked about me and he and I burning our hands together on the stove. So we're hard way learners. Look at that tiny little triangle of white. It's not exactly in the right place, but it's cool.
I, on the other hand, am a complete germaphobe, and I would never put a pencil in my mouth. Never.
I think that's smart. Okay, so I must have stretched things out a little bit. I ran out of some space at the top, so we're going to just go with that.
Thank you, Shirley. Shirley says, watching both of you instructing with various media makes my week. I'm 87 and my hand is too shaky to do art anymore, but it's still my love. Please keep me.
Oh, that's great.
I really appreciate that, Shirley.
Yeah, it's meaningful.
We really do want to make people happy. I mean, that's just what I like to do anyway.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, I know Ashley's the same way too. But and that shaky hand, that can make some art too.
Who's that from? Shirley?
Yeah, Shirley.
So Shirley, I used to go to college art classes, and sometimes our teacher would say, let's just scribble today. And we would just scribble draw. And you can build up, values. Let me switch to a darker pencil. You can build up darkness with scribbling, and then you just scribble less in areas you want lighter. And before you know it, you can have a loose and realistic and expressive drawing. So there we go. We got a value scale here. All in scribbles. So that's a legitimate way to draw. I love scribbling. So I would give that a go. I mean, you don't want your details to be too small to get in there. It's good for landscape and portrait, organic subject matter. All right. I think it's time to start to get a little darker. I still haven't discovered all the cogs down here. Guess I need to do that. And then it'll be time to start
But with the
shading
drawing
off.
like this, or at least I'm looking at the photo reference, the high contrast version. a lot of that is dark down there. So in
Yeah,
a
it
quick
is.
sketch like this, you might not
I
even
could
have
almost
to
just
find all of
I
them.
could just shade over it and then just erase out a few light marks.
Yeah.
And that may be enough to feel like those. Basically, it's just 2 little light marks. So I think I will darken a few of these lines to make sure we don't lose them, and start shading.
And I just want to point out, even though you're darkening up some of the lines, you're still staying pretty loose, not stiffening up. You know, your tongue's not sticking out of your mouth. And
No time for that.
I feel like when people get to this point in the drawing and they're reinforcing lines, they kind of stiffen up.
Oh, you don't want to care too much.
And you want to have some life in your drawing. So a little bit of movement is kind of conveyed with looser strokes. I mean, not out of control marks, but just not overly controlled marks.
And time drawings will help you get there. I think it's a great exercise. I really feel like in the 2 seasons that I've been a part of Gettin Sketchy, that my skill level's been improving.
Yeah, all that pressure, it'll get you. It'll keep you on your toes.
Just like an assembly line. Who knew? Who knew art could be so cold and impersonal?
Are you talking about the gears?
Yeah, no, just assembly line style drawing. You know, I feel like I'm doing repetitive motions.
Well, yeah,
which I am because of the subject matter.
Repetition is a principle of art.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Repetition, and it happens through a rhythm. Repetition creates rhythm.
Right, and well, I guess rhythm is actually the principle of art.
But
we create rhythm through repetition.
Right, they're hand in hand. You're right.
I'm a drummer, and anything that repeats creates a rhythm, whether it's visually or audibly. In a song, we have beats that repeat.
Even in poetry, there's a rhythm with the repetition of certain sounds.
Rhythm's one of those words I find difficulty spelling.
Are you a creative speller too?
I am. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes I'm spelling words and spell check can't figure out what I'm trying to spell. That happens a lot, actually.
That happens to me too. A little bit. You know, I'll tell you, the way with these cogs, it's really easy to lose your place. Got something going on in here. I think it's from my eyes jumping around a little bit. And you know, when I'm this far into a drawing and I find small mistakes, you know, we're talking about millimeters here. Sometimes you can't make things fit without major changes. And so a lot of times I just split the difference between what I drew and what I realize I should have drawn and go with that.
Yeah, you just got to make it work.
Yeah, that's right. I used to work with an artist who was also a really good carpenter and taught me a lot about woodworking. And one thing he taught me was that wood is a little bit flexible. And so you just bang it in. And it's kind of like that with a drawing. You just got to get your hammer out. This is it, right? This is it. And just bang it in. Just make it fit. All right. Now, there is a highlight here I probably just want to find. Just because I'm going to be erasing it out later.
Tom says, so glad you guys teach art, not language arts. Yes, and you're glad of that, too.
He's talking about our spelling. Have I told you guys my story about cheating on the spelling test in the 7th grade?
No.
Okay. I tell my actual students all the time. And you're going to love this story. I'll do this while I shade over the page.
Okay.
And now we're just going to kind of cover this with a layer of graphite. All right. Find a mid-tone and then dig out the lights and then darken the darks. Okay. It's the Walter Sickert method of shading. Walter Sickert was an English painter who was once accused of being Jack the Ripper. And he liked to.
God,
I know.
No, we're not back to him.
Did I bring him up again? I have a problem with Walter Sickert. I'm a fan of his paintings.
Right.
He's not guilty. He was just in the wrong neighborhood. The studio was in the wrong neighborhood. So with as far as creative, now please interrupt me with art-related questions.
Okay.
So I cheated on a spelling test in the 7th grade, and everyone knew that I spelled poorly. Now this was what we call an AG class, or like an honors level class. We're supposed to be good students and good at school, studious, that type. And I was, and I made good grades, but I do have a spelling issue. And so my friend James and I conspired to cheat on the spelling test because he was an excellent speller, just like my son is. It just comes naturally to him. He sees it. When James saw a word, he could remember it. And so he moved his paper so that I could see it, and I copied the spelling test. And when I was finished, I turned it in. At the time, I didn't feel guilty, at least not yet. And then when my teacher, who was one of the most wonderful people I've ever known, when she got to my test, she was grading it there in class. She saw that I got all 20 words right, and she stopped what she was doing and announced it to the class. And James turned around and smiled and clapped for me with all the other students. And I felt like the smallest person in the world. And of course, only James and I knew that what we had done. But people were cheering for my cheating. And I felt so bad. I wish I'd erased that line. So I started telling my students this story as talking about character and developing character and virtue, and I knew, and that was enough. And then of course James knew too, and I kind of wished I would have failed that spelling test and kept my character intact. So I told all my classes this story, and when I would do it, I would use people's real names, including my 7th grade English teacher, who was a young woman when I was in the 7th grade. Well, I became a teacher later, and she became an older teacher who started working at my school. And all my real students went and told her that I had cheated on a spelling test 20 years earlier. No. I got caught. I got caught as an adult. So it's just be an honest person if you can. It's not worth your character, and you're going to get caught. It's going to come out. It could even be after you're dead, and that will be your posterity. People would have known you cheated on a spelling test after you passed away, and it would still be bad. So
now
this really changed. This is a pivotal moment, a formative moment in my life, where I decided to try to be honest.
Well, in all fairness, I should point out here that drawing is, in fact, like legal cheating.
You're right.
You have a photo reference, or you have a subject, and you can look at that subject and that reference as much as you possibly want to.
I'm looking at the answer right now. You're right, man.
And all you have to do is take that visual information and put it on the drawing surface. And you're free to look at it as much as you want. All the answers are right there. What was the kid's name?
James.
There's James' paper right there.
Right in front of us.
Up in the upper left-hand corner. Just take a look at that.
That's neat. That's a neat
idea. Put that
idea.
Information down. Let's see. Negasuki maybe says, see, this guy draws and lines show up exactly where he wants them. How does he do that? When I draw lines, they go in the general direction, but not where I want. Well, part of it is practice.
Yes, they didn't always go about where I wanted them to.
But another part of it is, I don't know if you saw the beginning part of the broadcast, but it's the way Ashley planned out the drawing. He basically simplified something that's very complex into these shapes, and he's basically pulled the gears out of those shapes by working within the more simple shapes that he drew initially. So it's, a lot of times people think that drawing is just about making lines and getting lines on the surface, when it's really more about thinking about the form and how the shapes that you see make up the form. And then you use lines to define the edges of the objects instead of starting with the line. We probably need to think more in terms of starting with the form.
Yeah, that's good. All right, now I'm just going to dig in, try to find some of the darks, and then dig out the lights. I'm going to try to simplify the value, because simplification is sort of the lesson here. So we simplified the cogs or the gears into wheels, and now we'll take all the numerous values we see in here and just simplify them into 3. Okay, and then if there's enough time, there's not going to be. We can divide those 3 into 5, and then maybe a few more.
Yeah, the clock is starting to catch up with you now.
Yeah.
Russ says, "So once a cheater, always a cheater," and I don't agree with that because I think intelligent people learn from their mistakes.
Oh wait, I would say once a child, not always a child. Children make mistakes.
Yeah,
and I remember that as I raise my own kids, and they make mistakes. They're not the adults they're growing into. We're working with them to help shape them and guide them. That's what parents do. So, all children have lied. So I guess every human remains a liar, right? I don't know. Maybe sometimes. Maybe we lie to ourselves sometimes.
Well,
Maybe
when you create a drawing, you're being a little bit deceptive.
Now, that's true. Now, in that regard, I do like to tell, this is the second half of the story, that I like to lie to people and cheat. But, like my life doesn't go back.
You also like to cheat, or you just like to lie to people?
No, what I mean is like all those
you're
things.
A fan of Jack the Ripper. You like to lie and cheat.
Well, I liked to do those things. and it doesn't work out very well, people get upset at you, you get in trouble, but drawing is different. We're creating the illusion of form and space on a flat surface, and an illusion is sort of a lie that people enjoy, just like going to a magic show, So we're trying to create a little bit of an illusion or a trick, and in that way, I guess that's what I mean by I still like to lie, because I still like to create the illusion of, or try to create as best I can, the illusion of 3-dimensionality on a 2D surface, or 2-dimensionality on a 3D surface. And just think about that for a little bit. There's a few artists out there that are doing that nowadays, creating shapes that appear to float in space by painting environments. And I actually have done that a little bit.
I saw one exhibit where the artist had like what looked like a seemingly meaningless jumble of objects, but there was a light in front of it, and the shadow it cast was an image on the wall.
It was very detailed. Yeah, I've seen those, and those are awesome. Those are awesome. That's what I'm talking about. It's a direction that conceptual art is going now. Oh my gosh.
Oh, and somebody also brought up, don't forget the pirate that you like, Blackbeard?
That's right.
You like all these dastardly people.
That's true.
From
That's
history.
true. That's my tendency as a person, and I fight against that. Trying not to be a career criminal. So these are my heroes,
Daly says, I missed it. He switched to a softer lead for the shading. Yeah, I think it's a 4B.
Right. I'm sorry. It is a 4B. It wears down fast, which is really good, because then I can cover more space with less strokes. I like a dull pencil to shade with. I did sharpen it just now, and had to deal with about 10 seconds of irritation until it kind of dulled down again. So yeah, I prefer dull pencils to shade with.
Yeah, there's 4 minutes left on the timer, but we actually have 11 more minutes of broadcast time. So
that's
the timer will be a suggestion tonight. So you don't have to put the pencil down right when the timer.
And it's good. Now I am trying to look at
silent way.
Looking at these shapes inside of the cogs as sort of just being flat shapes. There's nuance in there. They have soft edges because they're shadows, and not really focused on that too much right now. Now that I've said that, I want to soften the edges, but just trying to get the values mostly in place, and I keep remembering to look at my reference. I'm starting to change things.
Yeah, there's a few people making comments like creating an illusion as a way to cheat, or drawing is interpretive as opposed to lying. Yeah, we're not insinuating that creating a drawing is indeed some sort of cheating or lying. But it is. You are creating an illusion in a drawing, and I think a lot of times people forget that.
Yeah, I don't mean that in a negative way.
And if you concentrate on how that illusion can be created in a drawing, then a lot of times that helps you create a more convincing illusion in a drawing. Instead of thinking, how can I draw this or how can I draw that? It's basically, how can I think about the shapes, the lines, and textures that make up that object and put it on the paper so that my viewer interprets it the way that I want them to.
Yeah, that's good. We're depending on the viewer's creativity sometimes.
Let's see. Peter says, Molly asks, do you ever do drawings that are entirely made from pulling out the graphite? Yeah, we do. I think most of those are on the website. But last week I did I removed a lot of charcoal.
That's right.
But it
Mostly
was an
with
additive
charcoal.
and subtractive drawing.
Yeah.
So, but it's the same process with graphite. Just graphite is graphite is a little bit more difficult to do that with because it's not as easily erased as charcoal is. So if you do want to do basically a rendering where you remove a lot of the material, I would start with charcoal first because it's so easy to erase. And then you can move on to graphite. I think actually covering the surface with the application of graphite gave it a nice medium value, and is as a result, a lot of those middle values that we see in the reference are going to kind of, our mind's going to fill in that information for us a little bit because there is a little bit of tonality on the surface. If it was all white at this point, we'd still have probably too much contrast, but because of that gray that has been applied to the entire surface, it's going to feel more finished.
And that's a way that I sketch a lot, in my own sketchbook, because I am usually moving fast. And so it's not how I usually create like highly rendered pencil drawings, but it is a pretty common method for shading for me. It's just to kind of cover it all. Okay, now 49 seconds. And so I may pull the whites out or the lights out after the timer goes.
Yeah, the timer's just for applying the graphite. Then we'll make that rule.
There you go.
Melody asked, how many grades of lead or graphite have you used in this drawing? I think he's only used two.
Yeah, that's right.
The first was HB. Maybe?
I used a 3H pencil, and then I went straight to this one.
Okay, so 3H and a 4B. That's a pretty
big gap there.
Yeah, those are two. So one pencils pretty far apart from each other.
One is a pencil, for line drawing, and the other is all shading. Didn't have time for the HB.
And look how much that addition of the values here, values the darkness or lightness of a color, has really brought out the form of these gears.
It's still pretty much just two values right now. Light gray and dark gray.
Yeah, but you've adjusted the amount of pressure that you've put on the pencil.
A little bit as we go. Now, let's see. I guess the timer has elapsed. We'll pull out just a few lights. And, when you're sketching, sometimes you can just kind of mush a little bit of information together. Again, we were looking for the big picture. And so I did that. I've lost some information down in here. I can suggest it.
Armand puts that together. We kind of intuitively know that those gears come together at some point.
You know what's going on in these other places. And so I hope that's the case. All right. Now, I would like to go ahead and probably bring it down another level, and then leave this gray in places that I actually see it. But today, we'll probably just stick with the general 3. I like to make this piece just a little darker because it's got a highlight there that I feel like it's important.
And here again, the last drawing you did with graphite, you spent a lot of the time...
On the
last drawing was the man playing guitar.
That's right.
And you spent a lot of time laying that out and not a whole lot of time adding the values.
Same thing for the Volkswagen Bug.
Right.
It's sort of been a theme for me this
when
entire
I wrote
season.
the post for that lesson on the blog, I pointed out how you can spend a lot of time adding the value and the result is going to be a more representational drawing.
Sure.
Or you can add the value quickly, and it's still going to communicate the subject in an effective way. It's just going to be a looser, sketchier image. And I think that is, a lot of times people, want to know, how can I make my drawing look more realistic? I can't tell you how many times I hear that.
Sure.
And I think as long as you get the preliminary drawing in place and it's as accurate as it needs to be, like you've done here, even with a sketch, if you just work a little bit slower with the values and really concentrate on developing the values, if you develop the values correctly, then the texture is going to be there, the form's going to be there, the light source is going to be there. I think if you just work a little bit slower, I think that is a good way to create a more realistic image. But that first step of getting all the information in the right place is essentially crucial.
You're right. The values can be, loose or realistic, but if the initial drawing isn't accurate, it really doesn't matter what you do with those values. It's not gonna make up for your proportions being out of place and those types of things. So no, not a lot of flexibility there.
Brent Does Art points out, I would use a carbon pencil for the extra black areas.
Yeah,
you could do that. I've got a few carbon pencils over here in the drawer.
All right. Well, I guess that's about it for this one.
And I think it's Carina says, and a white one for the highlight. People have asked me before about using white media on white paper, and with this combination, or with graphite only, I wouldn't use a white medium here. I would strictly use an eraser. If you're working on gray paper, then you would need to add the lighter values with a light medium. But on white paper, you got that white of the paper underneath. You can just remove that graphite.
They can sometimes look like, a little bit disconnected. If the white is very cold and this paper happens to be kind of a warm white, the white marks can sometimes not always incorporate well.
Okay, just a couple things. Priya says, fabulous job as always, Ashley.
Oh,
thank you both for the art and the laughs. Absolutely. Could you reverse the drawing technique for this photo? And I think what they're asking is, could you add white media on black paper?
Oh, yes.
And this reference would actually work really well for that.
This one would be ideal for that. In fact, I did an assignment once when I was a student where I had one subject and I was supposed to draw it in black charcoal on white paper, and then a white charcoal, the media that we call white charcoal, on black paper, same subject. And the goal was to make the values match. And it was the most beneficial exercise I think I did as far as really learning how to look hard at values and make those comparisons. So I think that would be a great exercise for everybody out there, is to do the same subject with opposite valued papers and medium.
All right. Well, we're going to have to probably wrap this one up.
It's time.
Now.
Yeah, it's time for us to head over to the virtual instructor, and I'm just going to draw myself out here and draw. Matt, you're just going to have to shut the camera down. There's just so much. So in 2 weeks, I'll be drawing again, and we'll be drawing a cube, and that's it, just one geometric form. And I'm going to work on it for 45 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. But
Edie says, I'm impressed. I'll go through these comments real quick as you're finishing stuff up here. Ann says, brilliant. I feel like I've learned loads. That's perfect. That's what we want here.
Yes.
Ashley, I can see you work back and forth. Just deliberate? Or just deliberate, or just the opposite? That's what it says.
You mean like skip around while I work?
I think you're going back and forth between erasing and adding material, and I think they're maybe asking if that's deliberate.
Oh, it's responsive. If I guess.
Well, value is relative, so when he is adjusting the values, he's going to see other areas that need to be adjusted
right,
too.
And just respond to that as quick as I can.
Yeah, I think that's what he means by responsive.
Yeah, that's right. I understand.
Mary says, I love everything about being a member. Oh, thanks, Mary. I've completed the Secrets of Drawing in 25 Days to Better Drawings. Now I'm skipping around. You have a preference of what order videos should be watched? And the answer to that is no. People come into the program, they're interested in different things. They're going to be drawn to different series and things. I think the best place to start if you are coming into the program is with 25 Days to Better Drawings. The Secrets of Drawings is a great course. It's the first course that I created. We'll call it a classic. And it's a great course too. There's just more of more exploration into different media in the Secrets of Drawing. 25 Days to Better Drawings is really focused on the concepts of drawing. And I think that's a great place to start for anyone, whether you want to learn drawing or painting or whatever. 25 Days to Better Drawing is probably the best place to start. And you say you're skipping around. There is a live lesson series that I would encourage you to check out, and that's called the Drawing Boot Camp. And all you have to do is go to the site, click on lessons, click on live lessons, and then scroll down the page. It's kind of an older live lesson series, but that's also got some really good information in it on building those foundations for drawing. But you can go into another drawing medium, like with the colored pencil course or the pen and ink experience, or even subjects with pen and ink, or you can explore pastels. Whatever appeals to you next, follow that passion, or follow what feels right, and have some fun. I guess that's the best thing to say. But 25 Days to Better Drawings is the best place to start, and it looks like you've started there.
All right, super.
Pat says, wow, love it. Pastor James says, great job, and I agree. Fantastic job. Broad range of value. The cogs and the wheels, the gears are very clear. And it's a wonderful drawing, wonderful sketch.
The wheels in my head are still turning. So.
We can see that. Teresa, real quickly, says, I may have missed this. Is the paper standing up or lying flat while you work?
It's lying down.
Yeah, and there is actually
question.
On your table, there is a slight.
I would say there's a 5%,
angle.
probably 5% slope or so. It's tilted barely towards me.
It's a barely noticeable tilt. Yeah. But if he put a round pencil on it, it would roll down. Trust me, I know.
That's true. You've been working over here at this drawing board, haven't you? Drop your pencil.
Let's see here. Pat says, Matt, you are contagious.
That's why I was inoculated on Friday. That's why I had to get my shots, because
Ashley's had his vaccine.
You guys thought it was coronavirus. It's Matt.
I think maybe they're saying you've got the continuation disease where you continue to work on the drawing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. I've told my students before, I said, just take the pencil out of my hand.
All right.
You just take it.
We are definitely going to have to stop.
All right. Thank you, guys. I'm walking away. All away.
Right. Let's switch back out over here. All right, thank you guys for sticking around for the last hour plus. I hope you enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed it. I loved watching Ashley draw all those gears. He did a fantastic job. And Ashley, you survived over there. Your lights are still on, so I can't.
I'm sorry.
How did you feel like things went?
I think things went really well. I know this was a drawing. It was a little bit much to bite off, but last season I tried to challenge myself with media. I made a print in 45 minutes, and that was pretty nerve-wracking. This season, I've been trying to choose subject matter to challenge myself, and I've mostly been sticking with graphite, a common medium. I know that in 2 weeks, I plan to draw with ink. If you want to follow along with that, I plan to draw with brown pens, brown Faber-Castell pens. So, and maybe I'll select a subject matter that's a little more doable in 45 minutes.
Well, first of all, hopefully you learned that even complex subjects can be broken down and simplified. Hopefully you learned that from Ashley tonight. That is something that we firmly believe in as artists. And I will be doing the drawing next week. I have not fully decided on the medium. I have a medium in mind. I definitely don't have a subject matter yet, but I have a medium in mind that might be a lot of fun, a little bit messy, but we'll see. If you want to be reminded, of course, of our next Getting Sketchy episode, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I think something's sent out by YouTube when we go live. And also sign up for the newsletter list. To get on our newsletter list, click on the link in the description below for those 3 free course videos and ebooks. It will automatically put you on our newsletter list. You'll get a lot of free videos, and you'll get updates when we add new things to the site, which is 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes 4 times a week. New things are added to the site, not just what we do here on YouTube. So, and subscribe to the channel here on YouTube, of course, as well. We've got 2 more episodes this season of Getting Sketchy, and then we're going to take a little bit of a break. We'll probably get back into Getting Sketchy again in the summer. So 2 more episodes. Hopefully we'll see you guys next week. Ashley, got anything else to say?
I've enjoyed spending the last hour or so with you guys. Have a great evening or morning or afternoon, wherever you're at.
And I second that. Good night, everybody.